Hello, everyone. My name is Alena Schoonmaker. I am a programmer at the Spokane International Film Festival, and I am going to read our land acknowledgement that was written for us by an awesome supporter of SpIFF, Margot. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded land of the Spokane people and that these lands were once the major trading center for the Spokanes as they shared this place and welcomed other area tribes through their relations, history, trade, and ceremony. We also want to acknowledge that the lands hold the spirit of the place through its knowledge, culture, and all the original people since time immemorial. As we take a moment to consider the impacts of colonization, may we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of the Spokanes and their relatives. As we work together making decisions that benefit all, may we do so as one heart, one mind, and one spirit. We are grateful to be on the shared lands of the Spokane people and ask for the support of their ancestors and all relations. We ask that you recognize these injustices that forever changed the lives of the Spokane people and all their relatives. We agree to work together to stop all acts of continued injustices towards Native Americans and all our relatives. It is time for reconciliation. We must act upon the truths and take action. We will create restorative justice for all people. Yes, so not everyone here obviously is, we've got some virtual folks from around the country here tonight, but I'm here on the traditional lands of the unceded traditional lands of the Spokane people. So I would like to introduce our filmmakers tonight. So these are all filmmakers from our LGBTQIA+ shorts. They have made films that are completely different. That we have so much diversity in this awesome showcase. So many different kinds of stories from all kinds of different perspectives, different kinds of characters, different ways of shooting, really cool stuff. So let me start with Nicole Diminesces. She shot this incredible film called Nightcap. Nicole, I'll introduce everybody and then we can dive into some questions. We also have Hassani Mustafa, who created this film called Blunt, that's also in the showcase. And we have Christy Ferris, who is the director of Amy Victoria. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Is there anything any of y'all want to say right off the bat, or should we just dive into some questions?
Christy, I am a fan, by the way.
Oh, you are? Aw, thank you.
I know who you are. I know who you are.
Oh,
I need to check out both of your films. I haven't had the time, but I plan on seeing it. So
yeah, I have to do the same. I'm looking forward to it.
This showcase is definitely I love all the films at SpIFF, but the LGBTQIA+ showcases are my babies. So I love all of your films so much. I don't want to say that they're
queer babies. Mine's a little queer horror baby.
Yeah, we got so many. They're the best. I love them. You can have every genre, you can have every kind of story. They're the best. But yeah, what should we dive right in? What should we? How you guys want to do this? How should we do this?
This is your show.
This is my show. Okay.
Yeah, I'll start for you.
Go for it.
First of all, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for just taking a look at all of our films. It's a labor of love. Every time we do this, you don't know what the response is going to be. When you do it, you put your heart into it and you hope that that it changes lives. That's why we do this. We really want to have people to have a different perspective about people and life and culture and allow us to be less judgmental and more loving and caring and understanding. And so I am first an actor, and I had the opportunity, a friend of mine, Michael, who, we were trying to get, he's in London, so that's why he's not able to be here because they're probably all asleep. But he asked me to direct this film. And of course, I was trying to pass it along to other people like, oh, you should call my friend from Ted, like Ted Lange. He was from Love Boat. He's a director. And he did get him. He hired him to do another episode, but he was very determined for me to do this one. And it was a challenge because not only did we do this during COVID, at the height of COVID, which means nobody could go outside, we did it on Zoom. I directed on Zoom, and my two actresses were deaf. So how do you communicate with actresses? how do you get across what you want when you're not really in their presence? You know what I mean? And what it taught me was two things. One, I realized I have no friends who are deaf. Wow, what a concept. You know, it's like me, when I hear people say, oh, I have no white friends, I have no Black friends, I have no Asian friends, I had no deaf friends, and it made me an advocate. And then two, it also made me very present, because sometimes we talk at people, but we're not really engaged, and we're not paying attention if what we're saying is actually landing. And so that's why this film, the short, was a labor of love for me, and I'm forever grateful. And again, thank you for having us in this festival. It's like over 20 something festivals and has won 2 awards, which is unbelievable for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
School.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
Nicole, take us to school here.
Yeah.
Nicole.
My little film Nightcap, it's been kicking around for a while. It's like, I love horror as a genre, and this I'm about adding LGBT characters into the genre. We're inserting ourselves in the genre. We're taking up space. And so this is very much a queer giallo horror film. It's inspired by, the films of Dario Argento, and just having the cast that I was able to pull together. Jiz Lee is a really talented performer. They're, openly non-binary and trans, and an advocate, and was lucky enough to meet them at a lighting workshop in San Francisco. And I thought they were so cool, and and personable, and I was like, hey, you'd make a great vampire. Would you want to be in this little short with me? And they were willing to. The production came together really quickly once they came on board. The location that you'll see in the film, it had to exist in the world. The set dressing, that if I were to have to dress this whole old Victorian in San Francisco, just the budget alone would have been crazy. So just finding that on Airbnb of all places, like literally type in vampire lounge and you'll find this place in San Francisco. We could only afford the place for 6 hours. I had to storyboard everything beforehand. We had a limited crew of like 5. Our beautiful model actress, Veronica Laveri, she brought Timmy, the little fat bat dog, in it. So we got an extra actor with her, and it was a fun production. It's one of those things, like, people were dropping out left and right when we made the production. It's anything that can go wrong usually does leading up. And you have to say, well, if I don't make it now, it probably won't get made. And so I'm so glad, looking back now, that we pushed forward and we made it, because it's one of my few shorts where people go, hey, I like that one. Yeah, what's going on with that one? And, there'd been interest around expanding it with a comic. And I definitely want to revisit the characters and do some kind of longer form narrative. But yeah, it's a fun little short. It's a nice little bite. It's 3 minutes. Everybody got 3 minutes. So I hope people enjoy it.
I made a short film entitled Blunt, and it is about a couple, an interracial couple, who have to kind of bridge the racial divide between themselves and their parents with the power of straight talk and some really strong weed. So this is a very personal story for me and the people who made it. It's an amalgamation of a lot of people's actual experiences. I wrote this film 2 years ago, so right before the pandemic, and I was supposed to shoot it like March of 2020. So then the pandemic hit and we lost all our locations and everything else. I kind of lost confidence in the project, because everything I make is very action-packed and very event driven. The plot moves ahead because of what happens as opposed to what people say. But I realized that there was a part of my life that may not ever be better unless I expressed it and try and tell people what I went through, and through that get people to talk to one another if at all possible. Hence the title Blunt, and the nature of the conversation, the way they solve the problem, and it's kind of my cheeky way of saying to the screeners and programmers what they should expect. This was a scary project. It was funny. I was applying for a workshop the other day, and one of the questions was, what is your greatest challenge, and what did you learn from it? Well, in October of 2020, I got COVID. I spent 12 days with a fever. And the scariest part of it, like all the aches and pains went through my whole body. But the scariest part about it is that I couldn't breathe. So, you know, and it was weird because instead of thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to die, I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to make films again. And the reason being is I'm the guy who has to carry the equipment up and down the stairs, load hundreds of pounds into my car. I'm the guy pushing my camera, which is strapped to a wheelchair, while having my sound mixer clipped to my hip. And it's almost an athletic endeavor to tell a story for me. And I've always been scared of the day when I wouldn't be healthy enough to do it anymore. And it felt like that day had come. And even when I felt my lungs recovering and I felt healthy enough to hit the treadmill and get back to it, the fear of getting sick again was almost insurmountable. And not only that, possibly getting someone else sick. I applaud every filmmaker you guys have selected this year, and I applaud this film festival for giving us a voice, because the filmmakers that are making things right now deserve so much credit, because there's been no other time in my life, nor in the life of any other filmmaker I admire, where making a film meant you could die or you could kill someone. I call us the COVID kids because we all had to battle this disease to tell a story, and we all deserve extra credit. We deserve double credit for it. And I think your film festival recognizes that, and I thank you.
Agree. I was curious to know, did you guys have a budget for this? Because, you know, a lot of independent films and small shorts don't usually have a budget, or you're spending out of your own pocket, or maybe you do get a budget. Or I was curious to know, did you guys have a budget for this? Or did you get a lot of people that were like, you know, willing to just donate their time?
You know, my budget's always been whatever's in my pocket. So, because, and also when I've been constantly making films throughout this pandemic, and I never once felt like, oh, I need to crowdfund, because there was so much else going on in the world. There was so much going on that was just divisive, and so many other more important things going on. You know, it's important for me to make art and express myself, but I just felt like, oh, there's other people, like if someone was sick with COVID, they needed money or they needed some support, and I didn't want them giving me $1 or $2 just to go towards making what I was making. So I usually am just pretty resourceful, and I like, as being a regional filmmaker, I like pulling my resources from, I've worked with a bunch of people over the years, and we usually come together to make something. And but making things economically, so we can, you know, we can pay our rent, we can still have some food on the table. But it was in the past, early on, when I had crowdfunded and we had that money, but different things happened and wasn't able to make a film out of that. I felt so bad for the people who had given me money that I didn't want to feel that, like, that failure was good, because it forced me to like relook at how I was going to approach other projects, but I didn't want to disappoint people that way again, in terms of they had given financially and I wasn't able to deliver. So I always trying to approach it like, well, if I'm making a project, I gotta be in it myself. I gotta at least put my money where my mouth is first, before I ask anyone else. But it's usually whatever in my pocket.
So. Chrissy, you gonna tell us how you put yours together?
Well, I am not the producer. Well, I am a producer on it, but so originally this started off as a what do you call it? A web series. So there were 7 episodes, and we had, gosh, I think like, I don't know, 60 people who worked on it over like 23 different countries, or so, you know what I mean? Like it's like states and countries and all this kind of stuff. Please don't, my brain, I'm so tired right now because I just got through doing voiceover work for hours for this new Laker TV show that's gonna go on HBO.
That's a lot of
people. So my brain right now is like, so I'm making up a whole bunch of like, it's actually, I can't remember how many people worked on it, but
I want to see that IMDb list. That's a big list.
Yeah, I'm like, so it was all these people from around the world that worked on it, because he's originally from London. Michael and Sana. So they got a lot of people to do it for free, and it was 7 episodes. So they had different people doing sound on every single one. I think had a different person, which was amazing. And that's why he was able to get it done so quickly. But no, I mean, this was like, you know, your friends. Here's the thing that if there's any filmmakers that are out there, here's the key that you always want to make sure that you remember. Any actor, filmmaker, anybody in the business, people want to be around people who have power. And don't get mad if people are not returning your phone calls because, you know, you're not a person who's in power at the moment. So how do you become a person who's in power? 2 things. 1, you're a resource, which means you're able to connect. So if you're not Michael Jordan or somebody like that, people want to be around him because he's Michael Jordan, he has power. So how do you create it? 1 is resources. So I was the person that was always connecting people with everyone. Hey, oh, you know, you need such and such and such. I got somebody for you, blah, 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 blah. And that's who I was. The other thing that you could do to create the power is people who get the job done. If you are the type of person that can get things done, people are going to want to continue to be a part of your thing because they're going to think, oh my God, eventually they're going to blow up. So if you're a person that likes to get things done, you're going to be a person in power soon. So with that being said, Michael is a person that gets things done. So I was like, absolutely, I'm not doing anything. It's COVID. And he's like, oh, by the way, not only do I want you to act, I want you to direct. And that's how the whole thing came. But they didn't have a budget at all. And then for you?
I was broke. I was broke as a joke.
And there's a question in there too. So
yeah,
there's a question in there.
I self-produce everything I do. Once again, I look at myself as a work in progress. And I think my biggest fear in life is losing my ability to tell stories. So everything I do revolves around making my storytelling capabilities move at the speed of thought, or as close as possible. So I built my own computer and I own it. You know, I own my own cameras and lights and tools. And I've never really had the luxury of too many set designers. I had help on this one, but because of COVID, I could really only rely on myself. I had to go to the location when it was closed and look through the windows and like in the film, one of the scenes takes place in a diner. It's not a diner. It's the front hallway of a dance studio that I just put a bunch of neon lights in and lit it properly, and it played. And it was just me. It was just weeks of me giving myself time to go look and coming up with ideas on how to camouflage the location. And I edit, and I'm moving toward that 10,000 hours on everything. So I really didn't have to rely on anybody to edit. I do my own production sound. I did have someone do post sound on this so that I could get it done a little bit more quickly. I work with a gentleman named Ryan Ray, who is the dude is in my head, and I love that. So, but yeah, no budget. Like everybody came in for the love of it. I think everybody was just dying to get out during COVID. I think the biggest help I had was from my girlfriend. She came in and she helped me, with wardrobe ideas and color palette stuff. And she read through the script and gave me her opinion on the dialogue. So real kind of a mom and pop operation over here.
I love that. I love when partners can work together. That's so cool. Hope you keep that going on the next one, man.
Me too. Me too.
Let's dive into Frances's question while she's still here, before she gets kidnapped by her child. So how do you all feel about the current availability or unavailability and accessibility or inaccessibility of platforms and spaces for queer stories in film? What were some of the major barriers and wins for you when it came to this story? There's another question there, but we'll come back to it after we go after this one.
I can start off just by saying I've been fortunate enough to work with a few platforms that have celebrated like queer horror, and then also just sapphic stories. And PJs and Pixels is a little horror sci-fi genre streamer, and they reached out early on and wanted Nightcap on their streamer, and they, do right by their filmmakers. Like every now and then I was getting like a little check in the mail for it, and it was like slowly and surely I made back the budget that I had put out on it. And then to this day, I'm still getting festivals are reaching out saying and now saying, oh, I'll give you a festival fee. And like, wow, like I was just looking for a waiver to the festival, but I'll take that too, because that's nice. And so PJs and Pixels has been a really great resource. They actually they funded one of my latest shorts called Blood Bond, and it was they gave me and a handful of other filmmakers $500, and they're like, make something short and quick and make it scary. And so that was a really fun exercise in just doing a quick turnaround. And it was like, one day shoot. We had more vampires on set than crew. Got my little dog in there. But that was just a fun exercise. And then also Lesflix is a really great streaming service in the UK, and they're geared towards lesbian, bi, trans, and non-binary content. And so the representation is really diverse there, which is nice. And I've had a few of my films on there, and I'm releasing, I did this web series called Dating in the Zombie Apocalypse. The first season, I'm gearing up for the second season. I just finished the first pilot of the second season. That's coming out on Valentine's Day. So there's some streaming sites out there. They're few and far between, but if you connect with the right people who champion your work early on, there is the support out there.
Go ahead.
Christy, you're up. You gotta dive on in.
Well, it's a catch-22 conversation, right? I see a lot. I work, mostly in television and film, and so I see a lot of stories that have characters that are changing. I think the older generation, we're going to still have issues because, they're just not accepting because of their religious background or whatever they, fears or whatever it is that they're dealing with. But I think, and the reason why the question is tricky, because it's also asking like, well, which part of it are you asking about? For my film, sometimes I forget that it is, to women who are in love. To me, it's just a common love story. And I forget that it's like, oh, right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not to say that I forgot or that I wasn't thinking that. I just wasn't thinking, it's kind of like, oh, when people ask me about characters and me being Black, and then they make a big deal. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't even think about it like that, and I'm a Black woman, but I was just thinking this is just a person who has this particular story. So on one end, I think we have to move from, move from a place of making such a big deal about people who are minorities in this business, and just tell the story, and the characters will fall in, and people will stop thinking about it being a certain way. I would love for it to get to a place where we're not talking about somebody being Black or Latino or gay or straight or whatever the case may be. I just want people to just tell a human story. And I think when we get to that place, it doesn't matter what the person looks like or who they are, their sexuality, it's just the human story. So I hope that makes sense, but that's my way of trying to navigate. Otherwise, I'll get to a place of being frustrated all the time because I'm always in fight mode of why we don't have this, and we should be having this, and and we should have more deaf characters in, and we should have more people of this in there. I'm kind of tired of fighting. So I think if we just tell the human story and make people think out of the box that, hey, this character could be, LGBT, kind of character. So so that's kind of how my hope is. Now, if I was in a different situation, I probably would have said it in a different way and been cussing everybody out and say, they don't be doing this and they don't, you know what I mean? I probably would have been that they need more of these people in it, but that's not where I am today. Ask me in a couple of days and I might be fighting. They need more characters like this. So.
I find your perspective really relatable. Um, this has been an interesting experience for me. I make films from a selfish place. And I think the most selfish part about making films is I have this release. And then the second thing on that list is what I learned. Before this, I made a feature film entitled Takeout Girl, which got picked up by Hulu and Comcast, a bunch of other really great places. And it's about a 20-year-old Asian woman who tries to save her mother's failing restaurant by allowing the local gang to move their drugs in her takeout food bags. And I learned so much about Asian American culture. I learned all the ways in which it is exactly like growing up as a poor Black person. And I was able to communicate that in the script. And it was weird. I think we're the first Asian American led film to win the American Black Film Festival. So like there's highs like that, but the lows were that in some cases we didn't get accepted by the Black film festivals or the Asian American film festivals. And it's been that way with this film here. This film was an amazing experience because I was able to take a very personal story and merge it with someone else's really, really personal story and prove to, in my opinion, I believe I proved to be a great ally, because now it's in my repertoire to make a film that makes the LGBT experience, and depending upon your race, makes those experiences very relatable. And that's what I think, you know, true understanding comes from, is walking in someone else's shoes and, you know, safely. That's the magic of cinema, is that we can take giant risks. We can jump off that building and then walk out of the theater and be like, man, what would you have done? Safely. For me, I think one of the greatest ways in which I relate with the LGBT community is the way Christy said, it feels the same. Love is love. And to be dedicated to someone is important. And to have someone to be dedicated to you is important regardless of who you are. And I hope this film inspires you to speak out about it when you have resistance. So, but the flip side of that is, in the real world, I have felt real hesitations to people wanting to screen this film. It's been called too preachy. It's been called too in your face, to this. And I sit back and I go, it's called Blunt. The name of the film is called Blunt. Like, what were you expecting? But people find really silly reasons to not want to have this discussion.
A good film will start a discussion. So I think
like there are people who avoid it like the plague, and it might be because of what Christy said. Maybe you're tired of fighting. Maybe people are afraid the finger is going to be pointed at them, which I don't believe the film does. But I feel that if filmmakers from the LGBT community are going through more than what I'm going through trying to get this story out there, I have a whole different understanding and appreciation and empathy for them. Therefore, I'm going to go out into the world and do what I can to help amplify those voices with the resources and tools that I have.
Well, filmmaking is a collaborative process. So you saying you found a story that you wanted to dive into and you were interested in and being an ally. Can you talk about that collaborative process? Was there anyone helping you with the writing or bringing your story together?
Actually, yeah, getting everything proofed by people I know who are from the LGBT community. Were they laughing where I wanted them to laugh? Did I say something in a way that was inauthentic or not genuine to that experience? Those things are where I had some really solid checks and balances.
Being open to that is really cool. That's awesome that you did that. That's great.
It's scary though, because nowadays, look at what's happening with Helen Mirren right now. She can't play Golda Meir because she's not Jewish. So like, should I be making an LGBT film if I'm not LGBT? But Helen Mirren.
Has anyone seen Shiva Baby?
Yeah, I loved it.
It's a great film. The lead is not Jewish. She was in the short that won all these awards. Yep. Still, there was that collaborative process of enough Jewish people contributed to the movie that we can appreciate it. Now, I'm sorry I cut you off. I just had
No. Helen Mirren said something amazing, and I was reading the article today, and these are her words. She said, I don't think it's fair that I can't play Golda Meir because I'm not Jewish. Does that mean Jewish people can't play anything else?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the situation that happened with oh goodness, and what's her name? Margulies. She played in ER, but she's on.
Oh, Juliana Margulies.
Thank you. She's on the morning show right now, and she played a lesbian.
With Reese Witherspoon. Who doesn't like it?
Everybody went off on her, and it became such a big deal because they were like, she should not be playing this role. And all this, I mean, it's all of this stuff that everybody's going to be fighting for. You know, there's things a light-skinned person playing a dark-skinned person, or, you know, in the Black community on films, or then it's a person who is British playing a slave, an American slave, a historical American slave. Like, so there's always going to be this thing at all times. And again, with our film, you know, I come from a very from a Christian background, and I know a lot of the church, you know, that I went to would probably not support this film. But the way that I did it, it wasn't like, and I didn't do it intentionally or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. I did it because I wanted to show the human story. And it makes people go, oh. So some of the people who normally would not be down, like, you know, that who have seen the film that are not necessarily, anyway, it doesn't matter. I just remember them enjoying the film, but normally they would have had something to say about the lifestyle. And so our whole job, to me, is to, as an actor that I've learned from when I was really young, is to tell these stories, to change the mindset of people so that people can start thinking outside of the box that they normally would think.
That's the golden rule for me as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Is like
exactly.
To tell the stories that you haven't seen told before, or that only you can tell. I haven't seen this story yet, and it was in me, and I was capable of making it. So I did. And I think the beauty of this story is how well my story, like even with Takeout Girl, my feature, how well Black culture intertwines with Asian American culture. There has to be some true commonalities for that to happen. With this short film, Blunt, I love that my story was interchangeable almost with you know, maybe some nuances, but interchangeable with these two women. And their story is interchangeable with two different people of a totally different race or a totally different gender. Because the point of the film is these conversations need to happen. And there's gay, trans, straight, Black, white, Latino couples out there that are all mixed up and too afraid to talk to their parents about what they want from a relationship. Yeah. If this film empowers any of them to have that conversation, then, you know, hey, I'm willing to take some fire for that. I think that's just where I stand right now. Maybe it's naive, or maybe it's just because I work in a vacuum here in Las Vegas making films by myself.
Oh, that's funny. I'm from Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say, if Francis, if you're still on, I really wish you could join the conversation. And obviously, I'm sure you have a whole bunch of stuff going on with your kid, but you know, I'm talking from an experience of, you know, a Black woman who's been in this business for a long time. I'm not talking from a queer perspective. So if I'm saying anything that is not, I mean, well, first of all, thank you for saying what you said in the comments, that you could relate to what we were saying, because I'm not downplaying anything. I'm just talking about it from a whole general perspective, even though we know that this is a LGBT community. I'm not in any way downplaying that. I just want to get to a place where hopefully in the next, 20 years, none of this stuff will matter, not race, not gender, not your sexuality. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that at some point in time, this stuff won't matter so much. I'm actually creating a talk show right now where we're having these type of discussions because I want to get to a place where we're changing people's mindsets about, not disabilities, but, ableism. You know what I mean? Just this film completely opened my mind to a lot of things. Like I said, so I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that you guys have me here. So, and having this wonderful discussion.
I kind of want to not really shift. It's sort of like a little shift, but also just more in depth for what all of you were saying. I was thinking that almost all LGBTQ films, I think it comes down to being about authenticity. And I think early LGBTQ films were about someone's in danger because they can't be out because it's not safe. So they can't be authentic. And so they're both in danger of, outside people hurting them, but also in danger of not being their true selves, and how that makes someone depressed, makes someone just feel horrible because they can't be themselves. And I feel like all of your films also have, they all have that authenticity about being authentic, but instead of being, someone who's afraid to be out, they are all about people who are out and they're sort of in, it's just a different look. It's after that coming out period. And I know that in Blunt, obviously, Kate's not out. Kate is not out with her dad. But she is now. But Amy and Victoria, they're obviously, they're out to everyone, but they're in a different kind of danger because they can't be together because of the pandemic. So they're, their health's in danger, but also the health of their relationship,
Right.
and how they can't be authentic to each other when they're not together. And whether that's true, whether they've learned that they can be. And then the same thing in Nightcap, I felt like obviously they were both, they were being their authentic selves. They're being their authentic selves outside of like their own home. They weren't, closeted or being worried about what they were doing on their doorstep. And they were in danger, but it seemed they were in danger, but they were also the ones in control of their situation. So I was just wondering if, I guess that's a statement, a bunch of statements instead of questions. What do you guys think about authenticity and danger in your films?
Go ahead, Nicole.
Well, I was going to say authenticity starts with, the writing process. It starts with collaborating with producers. It starts with who's the director, who is telling the story and why they're telling the story. And I'm interested in exploring Claire Denise had done a really great horror film a while back called Trouble Every Day. And she was simply exploring how a kiss becomes a bite. And I keep re-exploring, how a predator becomes prey, and how women exist in a world that can be very violent, and how we can flip that and subvert that expectation so that women can be empowered. And for my character, we have non-binary and trans people being empowered, and how just having that exist on film is important. Genre is a great tool to explore that. Specifically in horror where anything can happen. Nightcap was a fun way to do that. And the gentleman that plays the stalker, his wife probably hates me because every time I call him up, I'm like, he's a stuntman. So I know he's not made of glass, and I can throw a model on top of him. I could throw him down some stairs and I could kill him. And he's usually game for it. He's usually like, sure, I'm getting a credit, right? You're paying me in pizza, and he's up for the challenge. And so I keep telling him, like, he's an attractive guy too. I need to just cast him as like, Indian James Bond, and just let him be super cool and suave. One day he's, it's, again, that's playing with genre allows for so many opportunities, especially with minorities and including diversity. So.
Well, I just want to piggyback on what you were saying earlier, your statement. I grew up in a time where, everybody had to hide it. I had generations that were older than me that came up during the AIDS epidemic time. I kind of came in on the tail end of that, sort of like I was in that time, but I was too young to really kind of know what was going on. But I had friends or mentors who died from AIDS. And I had a lot of friends who were miserable, and family. There's a possibility that a family member, the whole time was on drugs, and we didn't speak to him for years, until we found out that he passed away, 3 years ago. But I think he stayed away because of that. But that was during a time in the 80s and the 90s where you could not be who you wanted to be, especially if you were Black. Like, I know that, I'm sure every single race feels that way. But I just know in the Black community, if you even mention, if you even had an energy or attitude or anything like that, it was crazy. And so I'm glad that my godson is in the lifestyle. And so I'm so proud of him, because I wish I could be like him, because he's so free. He really is free. And I remember, being afraid, because, you think, oh my God, well, what's going to happen? Is he going to be safe? Is he going to be this? But he's dynamic. And I'm just glad that we're at a place where, he can be free, versus the person that I was speaking about earlier, who died, who could not be free, and so I just want to get to a place where we can tell these stories, and people can be who they want to be. So it's a little personal for me.
That was beautiful, guys. I think for me, well, for Blunt, it's different, because it's actually like, some of this stuff is actually stuff people said. So there's a level of like honesty and authenticity that makes it very scary to talk about, because I'm so afraid I'm going to slip and say someone's real name or something like that. But there's a weird level of honesty that happened while writing it. And like, I think this is another reason all of us filmmakers and actors want to do something that ensures that we can do this for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. And I, as a Black filmmaker, I'm expected to make the blackest Black films there possibly can. But in this film, one of my leads, who's an African-American woman, we don't have a clear answer. She's not clearly right in this film. And that happened because I was writing honestly and authentically, and I was in the zone. And suddenly the mom said something I genuinely didn't have an answer to. And I felt it would be fake to make something up just so that the Black character can be right. Even though the mom had said some really off stuff and blah, 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 blah. And then also showing empathy toward the dad, despite what he did. These are things that could really easily go off the rails for me. But the point of the film is to open up conversation. And if we stay where the characters are at the beginning and give no leeway, despite the mistakes already made, then the conversations cannot happen. Mm. And it's a really scary place to be, because I can be considered someone who's tolerating racism or someone who's tolerating bigotry toward anybody. And that's a really scary thing to be, but it felt like I was being the most unbiased version of myself when I wrote it. So there's an honesty on the page. And I guess when I put it out there, I'm just trusting that people know that my intent is to be as heartfelt and impactful as possible, and to be to offend as few people as possible, but to empower as many people as I can, even if that means that my film isn't the one that gets me into all the labs or workshops and get me working on television. I'll just make another film and make my way another way.
I don't know about you guys, but I really do use film as kind of a therapy. Like last thing I'd ever want to do is be in a room with a stranger and have to spill my guts. I'd rather have to pick up a camera, tell a story, and I'm working through that. I'm working through whatever I'm thinking about. And, just with the feature that I just did, that, I'd lived with the story for like a year in quarantine, and it was finally like, got to put up or shut up and make this. And, it was bringing up stuff from my childhood, and like in terms of wanting to see representation. It's a predominantly Latinx queer cast. We worked with the Latinx Mafias, this great theater company in Oakland. It doesn't get more like, this is as focused as I want to be in terms of what I want to see for my first feature. And it's, you were saying you were being selfish filmmaking, and I'm not thinking about, like, there is an audience, there's a niche audience, but it also was like therapy. I don't know. I love horror, but I ended up writing this bisexual ghost romantic comedy that I'm like, where did this come from? And sometimes you just got that filmmaking as therapy. You just got to go with it and see what you get. And if it's great, if it's successful, I have a day job. At the end of the day, I'm a weekend filmmaker. But one day, it'd be nice if it was my full-time job. But for right now, just being able to tell stories, I get a paycheck, I can put that towards my films. But filmmaking therapy, everyone should do it. Everyone should be making movies and working stuff out, asking the tough questions,
Well, I have to say, Nicole, I just want to make sure that I give you props and that you hear it from me, because, to do, again, I never thought like, I just horror films, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But I never thought one being specific, having these characters. I mean, I just commend you, because again, our whole thing is for us to open up minds for people. So now your film is going to open it up to where people are going to be thinking, oh, maybe I could do this type of film. I never thought about it. It's always like you were saying earlier about it's about this, I can't come out and the suffering and all this kind of stuff. But again, all of this stuff is about teaching. I mean, even I'm still learning, like I said something to my godson, not too long ago, and he was like, no, but we're always correcting. Somebody will say something about somebody being Black, and I'll be like, no, so I think our whole point is for us to show love and look at people's hearts when they say things. I know a lot of people I had to get used to the pronouns because the theys and all that kind of stuff. You have to remember, I came from a time and the generation before me when it was like a insult for somebody to say they, like, oh, or them, or whatever the case may be, because they'd be like, oh, I'm so glad you're not like them. And I'm like, well, who is them? Oh, all those, ghetto Black people that are, you're not like them. You're like, so for us, we had to, a lot of Black people, especially in an older generation and maybe my generation, even though I'm not like crazy old, but we had to get used to, like using that because it was offensive. Like, it's a little hard for you, because if somebody said, oh, I'm so glad you're not like them, and oh, well, they, or maybe like, what'd you say? What? We ready to fight. So having to get used to pronouns and things like that. So my point is that we have to keep teaching and we have to keep learning. And I just hope that the new generation, and, like somebody just posted, the 80s were both good and bad. And it's true. So I'm hoping, especially in music, but more fear about being out. And I just remember people having to hide it. And so I just pray that we continue to keep learning, and that the new generation that comes in, they're a little bit more free.
Yeah, being open to that conversation. I mean, there are, places in the United States where people still don't feel comfortable coming out. So when people say we're over the coming out story, I don't think we're there yet. I still think we need coming out stories just as much as living a life in the world stories. And, there's place for everybody. So,
Nicole, I find the sort of films that you work on to be more exciting simply because I know they're every bit as personal as the films that are blatantly telling you they're about someone's mom or dad or whatever. But it's cool because I get to watch like someone's head get cut off or someone blown up and go, why was that so personal to this filmmaker? Like, I know when
I don't mind having the
Tarantino-
conversation, but we gotta have a special effect or a stunt in there.
I'm so excited.
We're gonna lose the audience if we don't keep it moving. You
But
know?
that's a
I love
skill
that.
to attach something as personal as like that time my dad lost my doll when I was 10 to like somebody getting their throat ripped out is a legit skill that I do not have.
With my web series Dating the Zombie Apocalypse, dating, like the tagline is dating bites. Because dating sucks now more than ever. But so we just throw in some zombies in the mix, sprinkle in little zombies, and the zombies can represent what you want them to represent. But there's that obstacle of trying to connect with another human being. So at the end of the day, we're telling a little rom-com with zombies, you know.
I love it. Mad props.
I feel like this has been such a good conversation, but I don't want to keep y'all too long, and I also don't know. I don't want to have our audience feel like they're missing out on obviously the best conversation ever if we cut off now. But I was just
You're gonna have us come back in person, right?
right, exactly.
With new content to share, right?
That's what I'm saying. And so I guess to as a final question, before we wrap up, I just want to know what are you wrapping up, or what are you about to start in your projects, and where can we follow you? Where can we follow you all so that we can make sure that we keep apprised of any new developments?
Oh, I'll go.
Yeah, you go first this time. Go for it, Sonny.
I am working on a short film in about a month called Hermanita. I don't speak Spanish, but I think it translates to Little Sister. And it's about a Latina who is recently released from prison and gets the news that her baby sister has been abused by her stepfather and now has to choose between living somewhat of a happily ever after with her mom and her sister, or going back to jail because she needs to send a message that her family cannot be treated this way. And I got my feature. I have my second feature, The Beautiful Brain of Billy Bendecito. It is about a Afro-Latino painter who has to finish he's a schizophrenic Afro-Latino painter who hits bouts. He has to battle to figure out the difference between reality and fantasy as a civil rights protest turns violent just outside of his art studio. And that one we start shooting in about 5 months. So, oh, and you can find me at Hisani J on Instagram.
Hassani, what?
Hisani J. That's HISONNI J.
Got it. Go ahead, Nicole.
I'm just writing down his Instagram so I can check him out. All right. So yeah, I was saying I'm in post-production on my first feature, Dead in Love. It centers around a bisexual ghost who falls for an attractive young couple who moves into her former family home. She teams up with her devout mother to help her find love for her afterlife. So I mean, how many of you have seen a bisexual poly rom-com with a ghost? I haven't seen it. I wanted to watch that. So I think I keep telling people we need more light and love going on in these movies, especially queer movies. So the plan is to bring back kind of the event style for movies, because as it is, to stand out in the world with an indie film, you have to be different. And I'm working with teaming up with different local LGBT and queer speed dating people, matchmakers, so that people they watch a movie and then they have something to talk about at the speed dating event. So it is really an event movie combo, and hoping to also share it with my distributor friend at Lesflix in London. Have an excuse to go out there and show it in a few theaters, because she does have some connections, and do some forewalling and see what happens to it. But just taking control of the narrative to get the work out there. And for Valentine's Day, you can see episode 1 of Dating the Zombie Apocalypse season 2 on Lesflix. Should be up next week for Valentine's Day. That's the plan.
Nice.
You can find more work at Dark Rainbow Films on Instagram and Facebook. And I have a podcast called Adventures in Queer Filmmaking that you can find on Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube.
Yes, you baller. Somebody who over there getting it done. I don't know how you still working. I don't know how you get all that done and still have a job.
I don't sleep much.
I can tell, I can see, I can't, oof, Lord, I'm like, oh. Well, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope everybody gets a chance to check out everybody's work. And thank you for everybody who's there in the chat, who's been chatting with us. So I am, for the first time in my 20-something years of being in this business, I decided to take a step back for pilot season because I want to create a show right now, tentatively titled, Lord have mercy, Walk a Mile in Their Shoes. And my goal is to have meaningful discussions like we have here. But I want to do it to where it's international. And so having these different conversations of what is it like being, being queer in another part of the world, or dealing with ableism, or dealing with, ageism, what is it like to be able to deal with those things in other parts of the world. So that's like woke up one day and was like, I'm really going to go for it all. So just looking for funding to shoot a couple of episodes on there. And then of course I have my show Monogamy that's on Amazon Prime. And if you haven't watched season 3 of Goliath with Billy Bob Thornton, I reoccur on that as well. I have a couple of other stuff, but
I go back to Scrubs with you, by the way.
Oh, lovely Scrubs. Yay. He's coming out with a new movie too, Zach Braff, with Gabrielle Union. So yeah, so
hit him up, right? And just sneak in there.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, no, wish it was like that. Yeah, so and then you can find me at Christy Ferris, any of the platforms there. But I think the biggest thing for me at this moment is I do a lot of voiceover stuff too. So if you look at the IMDb, a lot of that stuff is voiceovers when you see extra voices, because I built a studio in my house when the pandemic hit. If any of you guys who are out there who are performers or filmmakers, again, the most important thing that you always have to remember is to create opportunities for yourself, because one area will be slow. And while one area is slow, you have to be able to have other streams of income happening. And so, I don't just do acting. I'm a voiceover actor. I'm learning mocap now in my 40s. I'm like, fuck it. Oh, excuse me, my life said. But I'm
You're good.
Fuck it. I'm about to learn how to be a martial artist, like in this bitch. You know what I mean? Like yeah. What else can I do? So, and directing and stage directing and film directing. I mean, there's so many different avenues that you can do. Don't just pigeonhole in one area, and ask for help. Don't do everything on your own. Like, create a team and allow other people to contribute to it. We always want to keep things and make it mine. And then I teach a business of acting class when I have the opportunity. I travel to different colleges, but now I started doing it individually, because every student that I've worked with, young or old, have all booked their first show or got their first agent within the first 4 to 6 months of being with me. And so that's a joy, but I don't let people stay with me long, because I don't want anybody to be dependent upon me. I just give you the tools and send you out, because I'm an actor. Yeah, because I'm an actor. I am not here to teach you and be that person. Like, you don't need, spend that money somewhere else. Like, yeah. So it's about giving. And yeah, so that's it.
Well, I want to say it's been such an honor to screen your films, to have y'all let us screen them at SpIFF, at our little Spokane International Film Festival. But it has been such a pleasure and so much fun to talk with all of you. I made all of my little note cards so that I would make sure that I had enough questions in case I needed them, and I didn't, because y'all had the best conversation. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks
Absolutely.
for having us.
And have a great rest of your night, and
You
everyone
too.
stay safe and well in this pandemic.
Absolutely. Bye.